Here in the United States, we are currently observing the boiling point of an epidemic many years in the making. Data collection methods regarding this topic are limited, so I will not be able to provide you with the full story, but I hope to give you some overview of the anti-queer and anti-trans sentiments within the United States. I do this because much of the hatred and anger is misguided and directed against innocent groups, and we need to be considerate of what the actual problem is. Without impacting the roots, you cannot kill the weed. As I attempted to make a point of in my video about anti-queer and anti-trans ordinances, we receive our value system from our family, our friends, our acquaintances, and even our idols. Simply by taking in information that they have produced, whether it be their voice on the internet, on the radio, or elsewhere, you are subconsciously absorbing that information. It is virtually the same as how babies learn to speak. They simply intake their surroundings and try to reproduce it, whether it be linguistics or whether it be ethics. It seems like the repeatability theme is rather common in science. However, in the same way that we are not all born eloquent elucidators, we are not capable of assessing the values we absorb from other people to find if they are correct or if they are problematic. Instead, we are merely passive followers that perceive them as having more information than us, whether that be true or otherwise. This is exactly what herd behavior or mob mentality is. This is a byproduct of our primitive instincts. It was beneficial to groups for individuals to fall in line behind people they perceived as more knowledgeable than themselves. This used to allow the group to avoid disease, illness, and more. However, it should be obvious that these instincts don't lend themselves well as tools for understanding modern society. The problems that humanity faces on this planet today are more complex and very often more subtle. According to research into herd behavior, only 5% of a large group, 200 individuals or more, need to be perceived as the arbiters of knowledge or morality for people to fall in line behind them. This backs up the Shapist article that I will link to in a card at the top that says that only a little bit of bias can go a long way in affecting group behavior. Consider the entirety of the sphere of influence that surrounds you. 95% of whatever you have in your sphere is likely not indicative of who you perceive as the leaders in your mind. What 5% would remain? Likely people that are close to you, and maybe a few celebrities. Now consider that 71% of the United States is some form of Christian or other. This means that it's statistically likely that if you aren't Christian yourself, your friends and family are. If we took all of the Christians in the United States and we took a random sampling of 5% of that group, what group would be most likely to be within our sample? According to probability, the people we choose at random are most likely going to come from the largest group. Conservative Christian churches are growing in membership, so it shouldn't be a surprise that they would be the ones in our sample. Southern Baptist and evangelical churches just happen to host some of the largest conservative Christian numbers. and I grew up going to both types of churches. They preach fire and brimstone, and that we should die. In fact, James Dobson, an evangelical Christian author and psychologist, recently compared trans people to pedophiles, even though such violence is most often perpetuated by cisgender, white, Christian men. He did this simply so he could say in a roundabout manner that we should be shot. We could start arguing about whether or not words like that incite violence, but before we do, I would direct you to the Crusades and the Spanish Inquisition. If you are going to claim that words do not incite action, then you have a lot of explaining away of human history to do, and I really don't think this conversation would be for you. For the rest of us, we need look no further than the statistics about hate crimes against queer and trans individuals, predominantly individuals of color. 23 transgender individuals were killed in 2015, and 13 have been killed already this year, not including what happened recently. As far as survivors go, a survey of 1,253 of them found that 22%, or 357, were transgender. Furthermore, only 14% of the survivors were heterosexual. The crimes perpetuated against these individuals were generally physical or sexual violence of some sort. 42% of survivors identified their attacker or attackers as white individuals. Furthermore, the vast majority of these crimes were committed by someone the victim knew. It's not a group of fringe assailants that are committing these violent acts. It's the 5% in your sphere of influence. These are people with average values, people close, people that are following the drivers of our cultural values. These conservative sentiments are everywhere in the world. They are not tied to a single religion. Even an atheist can be problematic. However, people pushing a rotten xenophobic agenda don't really want us to know that. They would much rather us continue on the path to electing a demagogue that will turn this world into an ashen cinder if somebody so much as insults his hands. It's easy to buy into the post-9/11 nationalist hype, especially when articles continue to highlight his religion, while simultaneously calling the LGBTQIA+ nightclub that was featuring Latinx night, including trans women, just label it as a gay club. They highlight one race and erase another because they are pushing an agenda in your direction. People fall in line with that thinking just like they do with the values that caused this in the first place. It wasn't Islam. It played a role, but it wasn't the reason. There are people out there right now that the day before were saying burn the faggot, and now they are telling us, pray for the gays. Yet they go on Twitter to praise the shooter and condemn his religion. This is the world we currently live in. Now, it might make me an insane nut job, as somebody put it on the internet the other day, but I choose to believe that we can get at the heart of issues and find solutions to the problems that we face as a global society. In other words, I don't buy that particular brand of philosophy. If we can figure out the origins of the universe, then we can figure out how to reconfigure our values so they no longer kill people. Please stay safe, my witchlings. I can't even begin to describe how my heart aches for the loss of our siblings, and it's devastating. But we have to make sure that even though we are hurting and angry, that we direct that to the right place against the correct people. We can't put more suffering on innocent people simply because we feel the need to lash out. Try to stay positive, channel your feelings into positive action, and know that you are incredible. Until next time, bye.